This episode of Lunduke Show is brought to you by System 76, Pogo Linux, Lulzbot, and viewers like you. Before we go too much for... Matt, nice. Nice. Say hello to the world, my Wookiee friend. Welcome to the late night edition of the Lunduke Show Linux Day. We are recording actually very late at night because I had a very weird day today. I had car troubles. My car friggin' like exploded. I didn't explode it. You literally look like...
Talk about exploded, man. I've been there.
Hey, put those glasses back on, man. There it goes, old man. Now you look right. Before we've got a ton of non-Wookiee related questions to dive into today. This is going to be a weird friggin' show. But before we do that, I would like to do one thing. I want to do a quick sidebar because today one of the sponsors of this show did something friggin' rad. And I'm just going to go ahead and put this up. So System 76, who have been sponsoring the show for many a moon now, and have done so much for the community anyway, have announced their plans for making sure that IME, Intel's management engine, is getting disabled on everything. Not just they're currently shipping one, their old stuff, like their whole plans for how they're doing it, and they're disabling all of it. And hell yes. And they're what's more, they're also talking about how to do it in a kind of desktop environment distro agnostic way on all their machines, period. I'm going to be having next week one of the engineers working on that, Jeremy Solar's, coming on the show. I don't know exactly what day yet. I'm trying to figure out the schedule with him. I'm going to have him on the show to talk about the technical details of how he's doing it, how they're releasing it, why they're releasing it that way, exactly how it's getting disabled, the scripts they're using, everything. So we're just going to dive into it. I'm just going to grill that dude. I've had him on the show before, and he's a really cool dude. I'm just super excited about that. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this out there. System 76 is having a sale right now. Like, all their stuff is like wicked, crazy, super duper ultra on sale for like hundreds of dollars off. And the company is committed to disabling IME on all their machines. Awesome. Friggin' ridiculously, stupidly awesome. I want to high five the hell out of them right now. Those are my boys. Girl. So happy about that.
I was really stoked about seeing that. When I shared it, I was like, that's actually, it's like, I want to say I'm surprised, but I'm kind of not, because that's just kind of how they are.
So you notice how, like, leading up to this, they were kind of quiet about it, right? Because they were working on it. And I think, I don't want to like speak on their behalf because they sponsor the show, but I'm not like part of their company or anything. But like, I think they just want to make sure they did it right. And so I'm really, really, really proud of them on this. And so very excited. So I don't know how long their deal sale is going on right now. So if you want to buy laptops from a company where you are disabling that super creepy Intel management engine across all their machines, on discount right now, now's your time. We'll talk about the other sponsors a little bit later, just because I feel like that's way too much sponsor stuff all at once. Because oh my god, that's so cool. We've got a ton of questions to get to today, a whole heaping helping of hospitality to go through. But did you hear the terrible news, Matt, today? The actor,
something about Google made you want to.
Oh, no. I'll tell you about Google in a minute.
Okay.
The actor that played Gomer Pyle passed away.
Seriously, really?
Yeah, he was like 1,000 years old. I think he died in Hawaii.
Yeah.
So I mean, he probably died a happy man. He had a full life, and he played Gomer Pyle on 2 different TV shows. How many shows was he on? But anyway,
he's he's Andy Griffith, and then later on in his own dedicated program. It was a spinoff. Yes.
Yeah, and then he had a whole album, right? So anyway, for those of you who are, didn't watch Nick at Night in the early 80s or previously actually were alive when those shows were on, you probably don't even know what we're talking about, but look it up. He's friggin' rad. Anyway, Totally unrelated to Linux. I just noticed that before I hopped on the show. Okay. If you're new to the Lunduke Show, here's how this works. Once a week, Twitter, Mastodon, we get a whole boatload of Linux and free software related questions, and me and Matt Hartley pretend like we're experts and answer them for you. We're just going to dive right in. No, you know what? Before I dive in, let's deal with the Google thing. For those of you who have not seen it, I've got a few questions on this, but I'm just going to jump right into it.
Okay, cool.
A Google engineer submitted patches for Intel's GPU driver, the Linux kernel mainline Intel part of the GPU driver, to the Linux kernel to add support. Oh man, I'm getting all sorts of messages now. Mute. To add support for DRM. The HDMI DRM to the GPU driver. So they actually submitted patches for DRM into the Linux kernel itself.
I would rather it wasn't in the kernel.
In the face.
It's like, so my big question right off the bat is...
Rather it wasn't in the kernel. That is the understatement of the friggin' year.
Hang on. If it's functionality based, like if it's like literally like I'm wanting to capture something or do something that requires a DRM access.
What?
You know,
what? What do you mean functionality based? You don't need DRM to be functionality based. Matthew the Matt Man Hartley.
Netflix. I'm just saying, there are some things you have to, you know. Now, that
cool.
being said, I would rather it wasn't in the kernel. I would rather it be something that prompted me to make the decision myself, obviously. But if it's functionality based, I would be interested in hearing more of what it does, why it does, what it's about.
It's just stupid is what it is. It's just a bunch of stupid heads being stupid. And here's the thing. I don't know if it's been accepted into it yet. I was looking through the Linux kernel development mailing list trying to see. There's a few replies to that thread trying to see what's going on. And it's so far the replies all seem to be of the point of view that, well, there's just some problems with the code, which is funny all by itself, because I want to make fun of it. So anything wrong with it is great because I'm going to make fun of it because it's friggin' DRM in the Linux kernel. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
No, and I can definitely see, the more I think about that, I can really see where that's a problem. I'm fine with functionality, but in the kernel, I
have not yet seen anything that suggests that Linus is going to accept that patch and merge it into the mainline branch. I have not yet seen that. So what I'm hoping is that just simply does not happen so that I don't need to scream at him. I really don't want to.
Well, he likes to kind of know what's going into it, I would think. So I would think just strictly from a, not even an idealistic point of view, but just strictly from a, I don't know what you're doing to my kernel, so point of view, I could see him going.
So what it is, it's just that HDMI stuff. You know, that it's that DRM that many HDMI connections have that, you know, like some game consoles use it or some like Blu-ray players, you know, use it or things like that.
Poorly,
It's so, poorly. And it is problematic and it's annoying, but it has no place. It shouldn't be in the kernel. Like even
I agree.
Okay, I have to hold myself together here a little bit because whenever DRM invades my little bubble, my little freedom loved bubble here, I get all worked up. But realistically, if you are going to have DRM, that exists in user space. That exists outside of the kernel level, because you don't want anything that would ever be DRM-y in any way in your kernel level, because that's just begging for trouble. That's just stupid. That's like eight different kinds
that's an unpleasant layer to be at. I could definitely see where that'd
just
be a problem.
from both an engineering and a security engineering point of view, that is just dumb. Like that's a newbie mistake. And if engineers, and my apologies to, no, what am I saying? Not my apologies to the engineer at Google who did this. That's stupid. And your manager should be like, dude, you get 15 demerits, son. No, that's bad. I mean, release it if you want to. It's already, because it's already part of Chrome, right? They release it as part of Chrome, and they want to put it in the mainline Linux kernel. But no, put it in Chrome. Sure, then people can opt in to opt out of it. You don't have DRM and weird, funky, friggy closed bits coming through in your kernel space. It's just much safer that way. So anyway, Google, knock it off. I really would like to go a week without yelling at you, Google. Like, just one...
just 1 week, right?
One damned week. Seriously. I mean, how hard would that be? I mean...
It's making me sneeze, so I get it, man. It's just like, oh.
Look at you go. It's really got you all worked up. I'm just getting
all flustered.
This makes me extra mad. You've made Matt sneeze. I'm pissed now. Okay. All right, let's shake it off and let's take some of your delicious questions.
Goodness.
We got a ton of them this week. I have no idea how we're going to get through them all, especially since I'm clearly wasting all of our time with my own pet peeves. William over on Twitter asks, what does open source software need to go quantum like Firefox? In other words, go really, really quickly from kinda bleep to super awesome. Also, how can we make this happen more often? I think what he's asking is, how can we supercharge our software and make it faster? 'Cause Firefox Quantum is significantly faster than past versions, right? So what do we need to do to make that happen, or whatnot? Is kind of what he's asking.
I think it's some inherent level, and people can disagree with this all day long. The numbers speak for themselves. I think at some inherent level, there needs to be users. Obviously, that helps. People that want your thing, and then also a means of support, making that a continuous thing. Whether it's a hobby that you've just got endless amounts of time to work on, endless resources, or I don't know, income. That might be a solution. So like, Patreon contributions or whatever it may be, to make sure that projects have the funding to say, oh, hey, I don't have to, go flip patties or work on code that I don't want to do. I can work on this project that I'm passionate about. I think that's really what it is, because it's weird, but mortgage companies like being paid with dollars. It's the weirdest thing. So I think if people have, they have the resources to, I don't know, fix their cars or to deal with the money stuff. I think that's kind of motivating. So I think that helps. I think it's just a little bit. Yeah. Kind of helps grease the wheels. It keeps you motivated. It allows you. And I've worked now in a little background history. I worked as the documentation guy for Webcam Studio. So I've seen how important having time, resources, money, and users and all that stuff can really be, as far as kind of dialing that in. It is a factor. It's not the only factor, but it's definitely a factor. For sure.
No, you're totally right. I mean, that is. I mean, money makes the world go around, and it's not just because it's casholas in your pockets. It's just because if you want to be able to dedicate a lot of time to something, to do it right, you're going to have to make it your life's work. You have to make it your passion. You have to make it what you do, 6, 7,
or maybe
8,
you got to bring in an
hours a
expert
day
on a thing. Yeah, maybe a guy's like an expert on facial recognition or something. You need someone to come in and help with that particular code. You have the resources to bring them in and have them contribute.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, Matt, that was an excellent answer and was much less snarky than my answer, which was going to be something along the lines of, well, if you want to be quantum like Firefox, first you got to embrace DRM and put it in your product, and then you also need to significantly invest into censorship platforms across the internet, and then that'll help make your software go faster.
Yeah.
Dang it, man! I'm in a mood today. What is going on with me? Ray Shimko asks, Matt Hartley and Brian join forces and create Lundhart Marketing LLC. What is your 90-second elevator pitch on how to solve Linux's marketing problems? To start with, it's Wookiee face. It's electric Wookiee face.
You just got to get a Wookiee face in there and the problem solved. So, no, I think I don't know. I mean, really, I don't have a good answer for that. If you got one, go for it. I don't really have anything off the top of my head.
As a side note, like I don't have. There's so many problems. Honestly, the real problem with Linux's marketing woes is that we don't have, as a general rule, there are some really great Linux marketing people.
Sure.
But as a general rule, most of the people doing Linux marketing are not Linux people. So they don't speak the language, they don't have the mindset, and this is true. This is not an industry secret. This is just true across companies, organizations, projects, big and small. Most of the people doing the marketing for Linux and free software projects are not running Linux. End of story. They're not.
Yep, that is true. The majority of them are not. That's true.
They're not. Most of them are running Windows, and some of them are running Mac. And then occasionally you'll find a really friggin' rad person running Linux, and they're doing a fantastic job. And that's not to say that the people doing marketing for Linux that happen to be running other platforms suck at their jobs, but it's like if you were at Microsoft and you were one of the chief marketing experts at Microsoft, but you only use Gentoo and you refused to use Windows, and you didn't even really know how Windows worked because you'd never really used it much, and you felt like it was complicated.
Compiling Gentoo this whole time. I mean, you know.
I was just about to make that joke. Nice job, buddy. Nailed it. Brain things. But you know, I mean, you would do a really crummy job of marketing Windows. Oh, if you were at Apple and you only used Windows and refused to use an Apple or Mac related product ever, you would probably get fired from Apple really fast. You just would, and for good reason, because you couldn't possibly do a good job. I mean, I guess it's possible, but it's not likely that you'd do a good job because you wouldn't have the right mindset. You'd use the wrong terminology. You'd have the wrong vibe. You'd go out in public and people would see you using a Mac.
At a podium for a Linux
thing.
At
a podium with the words Linux desktop year behind you.
Yeah, I was just say, that was the best part. I just wanted to light my screen on fire. But anyway, yeah.
Side note, they've still never gotten back. Linux Foundation's never gotten back to me about any of that.
They don't care. They got their heads so far up their backside. They don't know what's going on.
It's
I was an affiliate for them, and I still don't care. So
I'm not willing to go that far. I feel very conflicted about all that. I'm very, very conflicted. Lots of conflicted because clearly, like Linux Foundation clearly does a lot of good, right? I mean, they actually do. They do. They
do from an IP rights point of view and funding. Yes, that's true.
The funding alone is big. I mean, Linus gets his paycheck from there. Greg Crowe-Hartman. I mean, some of our really important kernel developers, among other people, are funded from there. I just don't like. It's a big blunder when your primary spokesperson is seen in public actively using your competing product. It's like if you were the Coke spokesperson and you're out in public and you only drank Pepsi. You only were out in public with your can of Pepsi. It's the choice of a new generation, and you're being paid by Coca-Cola. It's just really, really stupid.
Well, I mean, for your expectations of the server foundation, I'm sorry, the Linux Foundation, because that's why we don't see anything on the desktop, is because they don't care. They don't.
It is really the Linux Server Foundation, isn't it?
It's the Linux Server Foundation.
That's not bad. I mean, Linux servers are critical. I mean, that's important.
They are, and that's fine. But it's just like, I think that's the underlying issue, is that's really where their head's at. It's like, okay, well, this is an economic motivator for us. We're all about the cloud. We're all about the server. We're all about the buzzwords. And the desktop stuff, that's great. We don't care.
Hey, I'll tell you what. You know what? Because I know without a doubt that some people from the Linux Foundation are watching right now.
Probably. I don't. Whatever. That's fine.
I'm just going to put this out there. I'm going to be very frank. It's an image problem. I have no other real issues with the Linux Foundation, but that's an image problem. Yeah. If you would like to come on the show or finally reply to some of my emails, that would be delightful. I would be glad to have you on. If you would like to send me a statement on the fact, I would read it in its entirety without editing it at all, and I promise not to use my sarcastic voice. I will even read it in the most delightful pro-Linux Foundation voice I can possibly muster. I will do multiple takes and release them all if you want. I feel like you guys need to get out there in front of this. And this kind of goes back to Ray Shimko's question. How do you solve Linux's marketing problem? When the Linux Foundation itself, the one with the name attached to it, has this problem where their main spokesperson doesn't use the product in public, that undermines anyone else's efforts to effectively market the platform. So you and me are out here. You've been writing, I don't know, how many Linux articles have you written in the last week? I've seen like a billion of them. It's like, I got to read more Matt Hartley words. No, but I mean, like there's always great articles from really great journalists out there. There's you, there's a whole bunch of other great journalists, but I'm not going to name them because they're not on the show right now. But doing great work promoting Linux, but then we have the spokesperson that's like, why would he do that? Because he did other good things for Linux. Like he was up there on stage using the word Linux a lot in a positive context. It was great. But then he undermined it with a simple action that could have been easily avoided.
So it's like, here's the thing. It's like the Free Software Foundation. I can go on all day about all the stuff I disagree with them on, but they eat their own dog food. They but they pony up to the bar and they stand by what they say and what they do. System 76, same thing. They actually use all of their products in their offices. So, it's that level of commitment that I would like to see. So it's like, if you're going to be the Linux,
they should. Yeah, I see what you're saying. They need to be using their own dog food. They need to shove it down their throat and say, "That's delicious."
This is the best alcohol I've ever had, man. It's great. Yeah, it's common sense. It goes beyond. It's not even from beyond the PR point of view. It's a slap in the face, is what I consider it a slap in the face. It's friggin' embarrassing.
It's really embarrassing. It's super redonkulous embarrassing. All right,
Sam.
Continue.
It's just I can't get by it. I can't pass it. I'm sorry.
I know.
It's especially that should have been addressed, but that proves to me they don't. That's not a concern for them. I'm sure they're nice people. They're family folks. They're great. I'm sure that's all true.
Yeah,
but as far on a professional issue, on a professional side, I just feel like that this is not a motivating thing for them, and I'll remember that. I will remember that. So
let me change topic to something a little more upbeat before we get into more of these questions. And we got another question from over at Twitter. So you and me, we write a lot about Linux, right?
Oh yeah.
So we're being posed the question: who were the most influential writers, Linux, open source, or otherwise, for you and me? Who did we look up to when we decided we wanted to get into writing?
God. So you want to go first? Or you want me to?
I have my answer.
Mine's
long-winded. Yeah. Why don't you go?
Okay. So many years ago, I was a PC repair tech guy, and I was watching this harebrained TV show on Tech TV called Call for Help. And there's this nut job on TV named Chris. We're friends. He was at my wedding and all that. Yeah. So anyway, he's doing this bit on 5.1 surround sound and all this stuff. And I actually emailed him later and said, well, the 0.1's actually for your sub. And so, that obviously established a correspondence and so on and so forth. Flash forward a few months later, he started this thing called RSS. Started happening. Weiner, Stephen Weiner, whatever his name is. Weiner, what do you want to call him? Stephen Weiner. Yeah, Stephen. I haven't seen him in years, so we'll be all right. So anyway, him and Adam Curry and a few other people who did what is kind of all fuzzy.
Adam Curry, that's a word. That's a name I haven't heard in a while.
I've actually had dinner with Adam Curry during that's a separate story. But anyway, during the podcast birth years. But anyhow, so I started writing some RSS articles for him. Later on, I started writing more articles for him. Then I became kind of a contractor / employee like guy. That got me kind of into the writing thing. Then I started getting.
When was that? Was that?
That would have been. I want to say 2003 would have been. Yeah, about 2003.
Because that was pre-2006.
Yeah, it was 2003. So I've been about 2003. I started doing Linux articles probably about 2005. I'd say probably some of my earliest stuff.
Okay.
I still had some Windows around, but I think 2005 I started
getting into it.
Getting some Linux stuff out. So, as far as influential, God, that's a tough one. Writing style, I always found Dvorak to be hilarious just because he was and I got there's a great video. If you go on my Google Plus, you'll find the video on that. He just had a way of really antagonizing folks, and I found that very appealing. Yeah. And so in my early days, I used to just go and I literally took that approach. Here's all the reasons why it's crap, and here's all the reasons why it's awesome, and and it worked out well for a while. So I guess he would kind of be my influence, but it was a really bad example. So I can't say there was any one person that was really it.
Yeah. That's actually a pretty good answer.
It's a long story.
Yeah, it's not that long of a story, but it's kind of interesting. I mean, it's.
Oh, I held a lot back. There's a lot of other stuff, but that's the short version. So
for me, there was two, and one of them is going
starts at one place, and
one of my I got two writers. One's going to sound crazy pretentious, and I'm going to get that out of the way first. Mark Twain. Samuel Clemens.
Actually, that's a good example. Actually,
example. I mean, when I was like a teenager, and then later on in life, I always admired his ability to write, not like necessarily his books, but like his articles that he wrote for things, where he just ripped things apart. Like he'd come at it And he had this wonderful way of, he'd write an article and he'd be like, dear so-and-so, I hear you're pretty. By the way, you're an ugly hag. And
yeah, seriously.
And he did so in a very poetic, enjoyable, and really acerbically funny way. And I loved the way he always turned everything on its head. And I loved that. No matter what it was, it could be anything from the president or the Pope to that one guy he met at the butcher shop. Didn't matter. He was going to rip you a new one if he didn't like what you were doing, but he did so in the most just killer ways. And so I always loved that. And so I always wanted to strive to be able to accomplish some of those things. And every now and then I come almost close and then I fall dramatically short, but I keep striving for it. And the other one was David Gerald.
Yeah, right.
David Gerald wrote for a bunch of different things. Maximum PC, a bunch of, was it Byte Magazine? No. Compute or Computer World in the 80s. But anyway, David Gerald wrote a bunch of computer columns. I almost never agreed with his opinion, like almost never, but I loved his writing style. He's also the guy who wrote the Trouble with Tribbles episode of Star Trek, the original series.
Oh, really?
And he was the showrunner for season 1 of Land of the Lost. And he did a whole bunch of just crazy good, like 1960s through 1970s and early 1980s sci-fi, just amazing. His sci-fi novels are just spectacular. And so a lot of my writing style, I kind of just absorbed from David Gerald, including his tech writing. So those are my two writing folks that I kind of admired.
Nice.
Honestly, like in terms of Linux open source and otherwise writing, I think Matt and I got into it because they needed more good writers.
I kind of fell into it. That's kind of like, hey, I'm actually into this and I'm really tired of writing about that other stuff. And
right. I mean, it's just what we were into. I don't know that there was any writer.
Well, and I think you were presented with a forum. I was presented with a forum at the time that actually led to other forums. But initially it was lockergnome.com, the old lockergnome.com, and just kind of migrate. And then I just started getting gigs after that. So
you got started a couple of years before I started doing podcasting, because I got started in podcasting around 2006, I think.
That sounds about
right. Somewhere around there, and then that gave me the platform to start writing, like contributed articles here and there that I never got paid for a long time.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun, man.
Well, that's how you get started, though. I mean, if you guys have ever wanted to do that, that's my big recommendation to people is put yourself out there, whatever you're into, whatever it is, and just be visible, and you might be surprised.
I'm going to just take a little bit of a side note. We live streamed this show, and we have a chat room talking to us right now, and I don't typically have the opportunity to look at the chat room very often, but every now and then Matt's talking, I glance down at it, and someone just posted, Brian and Matt, my cat is licking your face on the screen. So we're just glad to do our part. That's all. That's
I love getting licked by a cat. It's great. So.
Before we go too much further, because we gave a whole bunch of love to System 76 at the beginning, I would be remiss if I did not point out the killerness of some of the other sponsors of the show. Pogo Linux, which has Linux right in the name of the company and right in the domain name, pogolinux.com, produces literally some of the most mind-numbingly awesome, mind-blowingly awesome servers on the planet. If you go there and you click on their storage server section alone, with their software-defined storage stuff and all that sort of thing, you find like 2U, 3U, and 4U rack units with terabytes, literally over 8 terabytes of RAM and 60 drive bays, 72 drive bays. My God in heaven. These guys are absolutely amazing. If you need enterprise grade stuff, you guys need to go to pogolinux.com, because I don't know anyone who is as committed to Linux and open source and produces storage servers that are this awesome.
Well, what's funny is they've been sponsors for Linux Fest Northwest for as long as I can remember.
Yeah,
I mean, like they've been around for ever since I can think back.
That's where I first met them. And so for those of you who are kind of new to the show, so I don't let anyone sponsor this show unless I've met them and can vet them. Like, not only are their products good, but I know that they're legitimately free software thumpers just like me. Like, otherwise I don't want to have involvement in the show. So anyone who's a sponsor of this show, it's literally because it's like extreme vetting. Like, I've met the Pogo Linux guys, I think since back to 2006 when I started podcasting. I started going to Linux Fest Northwest and whatnot, and they were always there. And they used to have these stickers, and I wish I could remember what they were, but they were stickers, and it was like, so-and-so uses Linux, and it was just like this picture of this guy going,
yeah, seriously.
And it was the goofiest thing. And they produced just these nice workstations and servers and everything. But I loved their like they just took themselves really lightly. But on the same token, they were like serious about free software, and Linux is awesome, and you're going to make it big servers. And I love that. I've had them on the show a couple of times. And anyway, this show is also sponsored by Lulzbot, the 3D printing awesome people. I had the president of Lulzbot on the show. Was it yesterday or the day before? But man, that was a lot of fun. That was just a ton of fun. Go to lulzbot.com. Again, free software thumping people. Plus really killer 3D printers. But I love, and I love this. So 3 sponsors of the show, and between them, we covered like all different aspects of possible hardware running Linux and free software, except for handhelds. Like except for like handheld in your pocket gadgets. That's like the only like market segment of gadgetry that is not represented that in free software love in the sponsors of the show. And I think that is rad. Anyway, total side note. Back to the questions at hand. Cosmic Tachyon, great name, over on Twitter asks, what do you think will be the top open source technology trend in 2018? I know this is a little bit predictory, but I mean, just kind of looking at it, what's the open source or free software thing that's going to be happening a lot in 2018 that hasn't been? What do you think?
I think opening up the firmware / BIOS space. I think we're going to see more of the the embedded stuff being opened up. I think that's really what's going to be at. I think we've kind of moved past the year of this and the year of that. I think we've moved into more of the scary stuff, the Intel issues, things like that, like we saw with System 76 and their removal of that nonsense on the Intel chips. I think that's great. I think we're going to see more of that. I think that's a value. I think that's absolutely a value.
I think you nailed it, man. I think you friggin' nailed it. That's exactly right. I think we're going to see more. Honestly, I bet, and I could be wrong on this, but I bet Intel's going to open up their management engine. Because it's already an open source technology. I mean, it's not free software, but it is open source. So I bet they're going to open it up, because once you have several companies now starting to push in that direction, and they're going to notice, I mean, you notice System 76 made this announcement today. At least on social media, I lost track of the number of people who said, man, this just made me think twice. I got to, System 76, I'm going to really consider that.
Had the hell like that of it. I've never had anything like that much.
And it's, people care about this, and it's going to influence their buying decisions, because if they're like, well, I could get a Dell or I could get a System 76, and I was on the fence before, but now not only is this one company already supporting Linux much better, but they're taking that extra step, that beyond just supporting Linux or just embracing Linux or contributing to the Linux community. They're also making sure my hardware is safer and more secure and more open. And when Intel starts noticing that, and Dell starts noticing that, people are going to start making big business decisions in these big businesses. And I think you're right. I think we're going to see more companies starting to do this. They're going to follow companies like System 76's lead, and then Intel's going to open it up. I bet you by the end of next year, Intel will open it up. Maybe not on like their past processors, but like going forward.
They'll do it as a marketing tool. They'll do it as something that's a benefit.
You know what? I wouldn't put it past them to release a second like SKU, like the open edition for $15 more, and you get a completely open extra IME. I wouldn't put it past them, but
it's got like the some little Intel guy with the flip top head or something. You know, like,
and make a whole logo around it, make a little cartoon commercial. We're more open, and then AMD is going to follow suit. I bet you. I would be really surprised if they didn't. I think Matt's right. I think Matt's totally right.
I think Matt's right too.
Yeah, I like Matt, and he has really good ideas. He's probably a smart guy. He's a pretty smart guy.
Got a Wookiee mask. It's all good.
Let's do one more kind of marketing-ish question. Something really practical. Christopher Schaefer over on Twitter asked, based on your marketing experience, what are your recommendations for small free and open source projects to get the word out? And kind of sustainably keep excitement about the project. So like, projects that don't necessarily have a budget. They just like maybe have like 2 or 3 guys have been, putzing around on a piece of software, something like that. What would you tell them to do to let people know?
I think it really depends on the software, because a lot of times you have, like, let's say you have a piece of Twitter software, maybe makes a Mastodon client or something like that, right? So it's like, okay, so you've got set functionality. There's only so much you can freaking do with this thing, right? You can sex it up, you can do all this stuff. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think bug fixes are huge. I think involving people in the conversation of what things they would like to see happen, or why is the text white when it could be black, or whatever the hell it is, or why isn't there a dark theme, or to have the conversation and then have financial contribution voting rights into the direction of that application. I think that can be beneficial. It doesn't mean the people are going to get their way with dollars, but it does mean that they get to maybe have a bigger bullhorn than the other folks. Just kind of little things you can do to involve the community. A lot of times you can solicit funds that way. For bigger projects, like say the Kden Lives or the Open Shots or things like that, I'd say features are good. OpenShot, for example, could stop developing for Windows and OS 10. Just putting that out there. That'd be kind of cool. And focus exclusively on Linux where it's actually needed. Just putting that out there as well. I love OpenShot. I think it's great, but I just feel like they're splitting their resources down really thin, and I think it's a mistake.
I agree on that.
I don't completely, Jonathan's awesome, but I don't agree with the direction they're going.
Everything you said, I agree with. He is awesome, and he's done great work, but absolutely, yes, you're right.
Easier on him, honestly. So, I think just trying to find and really, I think when in doubt, ask your community, be like, guys, look, what would it take for you guys to start throwing money at me? I need some Benjamins. I need to pay my bills. What's it going to take? Do you want do you want some, like fast lane repos? We'll pretend like that, the net neutrality thing's not a thing.
But I mean, money aside, like you're right. I think you're going down the right path. Sure. How do you get the word out? Like, how do you get so let's say
videos, demonstrate whatever it is, anything, always videos. If I see one more company send me a freaking press release, I'm going to light them on fire. I don't care. Stop sending me press releases. Show me a video on what this is cool for, what I do.
I don't know. There's some pretty exciting and innovative technology coming out.
Press releases, man. I got friends that work for PR companies. It's just no.
I'm sorry. Press releases do you get in a day? I get
on average probably about 15 to 20.
At least.
That's probably, and that's what's not going into spam. So I don't know what's going into spam.
Right? Yeah, I'm the same way. I have so many set to go to spam from so many PR agencies, and I feel bad about it because every now and then there's something interesting in there. Yeah. But I just don't have the time to wade through all that garbage.
Well, and half the time it's not even the right platform. And finally, I started having to disclose. It's like, so you're not a religious evangelist because there's another person with my name where I was getting his email for a long time. And then, of course, you're also understanding I'm Linux centric. And if that works, then cool. If not, then eh. So, yeah. And honestly, press releases don't excite me. When I go to find something that's cool, I want to go to YouTube or whatever video source.
I want to find a video.
Demonstrate it to me. Show me videos.
Falling short of videos, at least a lot of really cool screenshots, right? I mean,
screenshots in a good article are fine. I'm good with that. That's awesome.
Quick visuals that tell the whole story. Yeah. Like an annotated, a nicely annotated screenshot does good there. Excuse me, a lot of Pepsi in me right now. The other thing that really helps a lot, win over a couple of the movers and shakers.
Oh yeah.
So like, and go to a Matt Hartley. Find the Matt Hartleys of the world, the people who have an audience already that have, you know, Matt. So Matt goes on video shows, he writes articles, he's got his tweets and whatnotses. Win Matt over. So go to Matt, and you know how Matt was earlier. He was saying, you know, you go to users and say, what would it take to get you guys to throw some cash at me? Go to Matt and say, hey, you seem to like this sort of thing.
Seriously.
What would it take you to use this piece of software? Like, what feature does it need? What does it need to look like? What is it missing that would make you love it? Win Matt over, and not just Matt, but like, you know, all of them. You know your target audience. Find the people that you follow that have a significant audience, whether it's social media, YouTube channels, articles, whatever, and win one or two of those over, and it starts a snowball effect. If you get two different really established journalists or videographers or whatever making stuff about your new game or app, then it's out of your hands. It's going, and now it's rolling. And then when you do have a new version and you announce it, now people are going to pay attention.
Exactly. So I guess my homework for you is you're going to want to YouTube and Google search, or however you search for stuff. That's up to you guys. But you want to do some studying on influencer marketing. Start there and really just watch and read as much as you can on that, and really learn the understanding of it, because that frankly is where it's going.
Absolutely.
It's just what it is. So, yeah. And, you know, bring on, I was community manager for 10 or 11 years. I know a thing or two. So you know, something to consider.
Something to consider. The next question from over on Twitter from C. Ortega is more of a statement than less of a question. I'm going to go ahead and put this up on the screen. Matt, I know you're not going to be able to see this here, but it is a wonderful animated GIF of Baby Groot dancing with "I am Root" at Apple as the text. Thank
yes,
you for
I heard about
that.
this. I actually shared a gnarly thing on that.
Fantastic.
Yep,
I mean, I have nothing to say other than awesome. I mean,
it's very Windows 98 of them, really. I mean, it really is. It's just like, but I mean, it's just like, I might as well just go to the login screen and hit cancel. I mean, really.
Now, to be fair though, remember the was it hit enter 18 times at Grub and you instantly get root access. We've had those problems before too. I want to dog on Apple here really bad, but I also don't want people to bring up
Grub and the Apple. Oh yeah, the billions and billions of dollars. That's the difference. So, you know, I'm just saying, you know, I mean, Grub
also.
Slightly less resources to, you know.
Also note that when we as Linux users, when we had that issue with Grub, and what was this, 2 years ago or so now, you hit enter, it was like hit enter 16 times and boom, you're dropped into a terminal right from there.
Oh, it was super handy. I didn't have to type anything.
However, almost every distro, many distros weren't even impacted, and almost every distro had it patched and out to their users almost instantaneously. The issue with Apple, they don't really have it patched so much, functionally patched right now. They have like workaround patched. And I think it was interesting because Macs don't have root passwords set by default.
They don't know.
Which is bizarre to me. Why would you have a root account with no password on it? Like, why would you even have that in the first place?
I've worked on Macs, like in a repair sense, and yeah, I mean, it's like all 3 instances to where that might be useful, but honestly, I can't honestly think of any time I've ever used it.
But I mean, if you have a root account, wouldn't you want to stick a password on it? Like maybe like, because I mean, with Macs, you have to set a password for your user account. Why not just make it that or something? Like just set a friggin' root password already. How
1 2 3 4 5 6, or the word password. You know,
something, right?
Something you pass around on social media.
Oh my God.
Hey, it works for routers. You know, super secure. Just look for the word Linksys. You know, connecty. Free Wi-Fi, kids.
No, I got a great question, and I'm going to spin this off into something different, but I want to address it really quickly. Peter Blackwell asked, after 17 years of using Linux, I just discovered Glipper, a graphical clipboard manager. I didn't know it existed. I love it. Are there any other little helpful GUI tools you can recommend? So I'll post that to Matt, but also I turned that around and said, hey, Twitter, what else do you guys recommend? And the answers I got were awesome. And there's way too many to list right now, so I'm going to do a separate video on that next week because that's awesome. But Matt, Have anything?
I've actually used Glipper. I was using Clipit at the moment. As far as other weird little GUI things, I'm big into random wallpapers with various cartoons. So because I'm a child at heart, so I use an application called Variety. It runs as a widget in your system tray, and it's really handy. Yeah,
nice.
It's handy. It's handy. But yeah, clipboard managers, they're a thing. Linux and clipboarding without a clipboard manager is a bad time, especially when you close the window and you go to paste a thing. Yeah, not so much.
Right.
Yeah, just saying. That's one thing that it's kind of like, all right, guys, it's 2018, seriously. But anyway.
Yes.
Although, remember when the recycle bin didn't have a restore? I'm just saying. I remember that too. I hated that. That used to piss me off.
Times is tough, is all I gotta say.
Yeah, old school.
Let's switch over to Mastodon. We got questions from over on Mastodon right now. Oh my gosh, we got so many questions going on. Holy crap, we got a lot of questions going on. Oh my, what is happening in the world today? Commodore 256. How are you preparing for a world without internet? Mirroring wikis and distro repos? If I'm a crazy person and I thought of living semi-offline to save money, I'm a crazy person and I thought living semi-offline to save money. And this is actually an interesting point. Instead of paying $100 per month for internet, I would just buy server equipment and leech off free Wi-Fi for basic telecoms. I could pay for internet for a couple of years, or I could have $2,400 worth of server equipment and not get tracked as easily. Decisions. That's a really good point. Matt's got thoughts on this, I know.
I mean, honestly, what you really want to do is you have the right approach. You want to invest in hardware that's going to make that migration easier. You can still be a cord cutter. It just means you're not going to be downloading the videos off of the internet. Where things get fuzzy is with updates. That's where you might have to, if you're using a Debian / Ubuntu type setup, you could use Apton CD. That's one option to get, to kind of craft your own little backup of maybe you want to bring packages to you or whatever. One thing I'd love to see, and there's lots of different ways. I know even Arch has got an entire wiki page on this, is to make updates easier for offline people. I know Netflix for it or something like that would be kind of weird to have a DVD arrive every month. It'd be kind of bizarre. It's just not practical because the problem's not big enough yet. But if it was, it'd be kind of nice to have a thumb drive up here in your mailbox, and you can, it's rough. I think updates are the biggest challenge. Otherwise, equipment, a Kodi, you're just, you're kind of an own cloud type setup, or whatever you want to do. I mean, there's just different things you can do, but I think just kind of keeping it in your LAN, I think is really where it's at. Invest in the LAN.
Invest in the friggin' LAN, man. I think Commodore 256 is onto something here. So, oh man, this becomes such a huge topic. So there's lots of things you can do there, and I've thought about it too. I mean, clearly I have a mega fast internet connection, and so does Matt right now.
Sure.
This is what
we're
do.
Both files. Yeah.
But see, I don't know that Matt and I can effectively do what we do and go that route. But if we didn't do our shows like this, if we didn't need to interview people and have video conferences and whatnot, if we could just be in our own little world, record our videos, and then go with our laptops up to Starbucks and upload from there, then that would work for us. I think Matt's right. The problem comes in with software updates, but here's the thing. Software updates are really optional. I mean, realistically, most updates are really optional. It
doesn't matter, right? That's an interesting point. Yeah, it's like I have a Pi with RetroPie. It doesn't matter because it's never connected to the internet.
If you're not connected to the internet, especially if you've got like a hardwired LAN going on for most of your network, what's the big friggin' deal? What do you need those security patches for most of the time? Sometimes stuff comes up, but most of the time not really. But it basically means that you have iffy communications, right? So if you want to chat with people or do something like that, you got to go out of the house or mooch off of a neighbor or something along those lines. And that's totally doable. I mean, there are a couple of unsecured Wi-Fi networks within range of my house. I don't go on them because that scares the dickens at me. You bust out those Pringles cans and start pointing it around. I met a guy Up in Washington State, in the Washington State ferry system, they had a program to put Wi-Fi on the Washington State ferries. This is kind of a related thing. And it was, slow and iffy and whatnot. But in order to get that working, basically use, high power antennas and use basically the equivalent of Pringles cans. And in some cases, actual Pringles cans. And you point it in the direct direction you want to make it go. And you can get a really long line of sight to whatever Wi-Fi access point you need. Now, or if you live in a city or a town or a suburb, the odds of you being able to find an open Wi-Fi access point, perhaps a Starbucks, perhaps just another shop or storefront that offers free Wi-Fi, just Pringles can that sucker until you find one, bolt that into place, and it's kind of cheap and it's kind of jank in a way, but you can get free Wi-Fi that way. It may not be super fast and whatnot, like Fios, but it's something.
That is one option. Another option is to invest a few $100 in a very high-powered, amped-out, omnidirectional device that you put on your roof.
Yes.
And then whoever you're mooching off of, buy some stuff from them occasionally. Don't be a jerk. You want to make sure to contribute. Because you otherwise you get into kind of a weird area there. But make sure you're contributing to their bottom line a little bit. Yeah. And especially for fast food or whatever it may be.
Yeah. If you're doing it like from a Starbucks, go to that Starbucks and buy a coffee.
But yeah, seriously. But I think you would be surprised if you get the right antenna and you get it high enough and you get omnidirectional. I think you'd be surprised what you pick up. Even
I suppose we're kind of veering away from the core of his question, which is more about being offline.
This is true. So hardware.
So realistically, if I had, let's say you spend $100 a month on wicked fast internet, right? Which isn't crazy in the current climate.
Well, especially if you end up having to go business class or something, that's about on par.
So let's say you save $1,200 a year, which when I say that and it comes out of my mouth, that makes me wonder why I have internet access.
Right.
But $1,200 per year is a significant amount of hardware and storage. You could put together a very nice, in just the first year alone, a wicked nice storage server with a whole hell of a lot of terabytes of storage, plus a nice TV that has a nice 4K display, plus a couple of nice game consoles to connect up to it to play your videos, plus maybe a Netflix subscription for the actual Blu-rays and DVDs to keep coming to your house to rip those suckers and put them. Not that I'm condoning piracy.
Well, it's because they're good ones you own in a closet, so you're just using.
Yes, because I mean. You buy the DVDs. Shoot. So backtrack.
Anyway,
I think people should only buy media. But you see what I'm saying? Like you could put all your games on that, and the reality is for entertainment, that absolutely does it. The only thing you miss out on then is latest TV stuff on the networks that are like streaming channels and whatnot. You're not gonna be able to watch the latest episodes of Stranger Things until they're out on Blu-ray or whatever. So there's pluses and minuses there, but in the end, you would save quite a lot of money. Me and my wife used to be cord cutters long before people were cord cutters.
Right.
And it was actually quite nice. Not only did we save money, but we actually had a server back when 1 terabyte was insane. We had a 1.6 terabyte server with many hard drives, and we ripped DVDs and we put them onto there. All the DVDs we owned.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And absolutely owned, kept it right there. Point to it. That's mine. We not only did we save so much money, but in the end, we had access to way more entertainment than we ever could have dreamed of otherwise. And then we had the over-the-air antennas for like local news and events and like election night coverages and crap like that. And that actually worked wonderfully well. Wonderfully well. And we did that for 4 or 5 years before we ended up moving and we had a hard drive failure, and then we ended up getting cable and internet again, and then it was just all downhill from there. But it actually works out pretty nicely.
Well, and if you do it right, you end up with really good stuff like the Babylon 5 or Night Court. I've got everything on all that. You name anything from the 80s, I have all of it. I have the Lone freaking Gunman, son. I got the Lone Gunman.
I missed that show.
Yes. Those ones,
good.
And there's so much about it that's awesome. If you haven't checked it out, you gotta get the DVDs or whatever.
It was
but
good.
yeah,
it was a good
yeah.
show.
So there's a lot of good stuff out there. So you know, you may miss out on some of the newer stuff, but you can make up for that by getting the DVDs and things like that.
Yeah,
now, I've actually come up with a way to do podcasting using Linux magazines and DVDs and a telephone with no internet. It'll blow your mind. If you think about it. Yeah. If you think about it, it's actually not that complicated. The key for real-time communication is called a telephone. And then you actually record into your mics, obviously minus feedback. You figure that out. But minus the feedback, everyone records locally, video and audio.
Yeah.
The telephone allows you to get the real-time back and forth.
Yeah.
And then somebody, one of you or both of you, but usually you pick one of the two of you, to then take that media and merge it. Basically, and I've done this.
Yeah, but how do you send the media to each other? Do you like mail it?
Flash drives. Yeah.
Yeah, or go down to a coffee shop the next day.
Yeah, right. I'll go to.
Yeah.
No internet. We're in the apartment.
No internet at all. Okay.
No internet at all. Okay. No
we're dropping a flash. The flash drives are light enough. Yeah. You could probably do it with standard postage.
Oh yeah, just do it for sure.
I've never done that.
I mean, people can be patient. So a long time. I have experience doing this. I actually was hired by a comedian that. Anyway, I was hired by one specific comedian that used to do a lot of stand-up stuff, and they were doing a comedy show to where the audio and the video were completely done by separate companies. It was it was a mess. And so my job was to basically piece that together. And so I have some experience doing this. You can, in fact, do this. Then when it's ready for the public consumption, you need a way to distribute it. You got to get people out there.
That person goes down to the coffee shop and uploads it.
Oh, Linux Magazine. You know, the little disc that comes in the Linux magazines, instead of it being a distro, it's your podcast or a group of podcasts. Then you have a way of actually getting or being introduced to media. Hey, check out these new guys. Or if you want to subscribe to them, you think mail order, think the back of comic books, think old school, you know, by getting your word out there in areas that they're already at. I think that, but Linux magazines have an unfair advantage in that they're already including media in their publications. So there is a way of doing this. It's incredibly convoluted, and I would hate to have to go that route, but it is doable. And I would probably do that because I have that much time on my hands.
That is ridiculous, but I like it a lot.
Yeah,
really,
right.
That really appeals to the ridiculous part of me.
Or do you download it on BBS? Whatever. That's acceptable too.
You know, so it's funny because I run so the House of Lunduke BBS, bbs.lunduke.com. You can telnet into it. It's 20 line BBS. I've been wanting to get it online, so I contacted Frontier. Frontier is the company that does my my local phone service around here.
Yep, same.
They won't drop me a POTS line.
Oh yeah, I believe it. Yeah, no, Frontier is something else.
Like, well, so what they're willing to do is they're willing to do a set number of copper lines per like area, and that's it. So you can't. And POTS, for those of you who don't know, is plain old telephone service. If you're under the age of 30, you might not even know what the hell that is, but it's an actual analog copper line. The only thing they'll do is digital for if that number of total copper lines per region is already used up. So I get so in many areas of the United States now, you can't even get a telephone line.
That's right.
It's not something that's physically possible.
Well,
so I can't run a BBS here.
Yeah,
I can't.
And that sucks. You know what sucks is because POTS is an interesting concept because it runs its own current through the phone line. So when your power goes out, your phone is still getting power. It still
works. So like
right
now,
that's how it works. Yeah.
So like if you get like a Fios line or a Comcast line with a VoIP, they'll have a battery backup that lasts for 8 hours if your power goes out. But yeah, POTS line will last forever. You don't even need power service to your house, and your phone has power. And I can't. But I thought about that. How cool would that be for for the MP3s for every episode of this is available for download from the House of Lunduke BBS. You could dial into it with a local phone number in Portland or wherever, and you could download it and over that. That's so cool. I mean, only a couple people are going to do that.
Oh, yeah. Seriously. Yeah, right. Yeah. But still cool, though.
But I know a lot of people that would do it once to say they did it. And because that's so neat. And I think it sucks that we're at a point in technology where we're refusing as a society to even allow people to use technology that's more than 5, 10, 15 years old. That sucks so much. You remember ISDN lines?
Oh, yeah.
DSL lines? These were the future 15 years ago.
Well, and for audio podcasting, ISDN is still arguably pretty damn good.
ISDN is awesome. Well,
yeah,
I remember
for real-time stuff and latency. Yeah,
like Leo Laporte over on This Week in Tech. He required all of his co-hosts to get an ISDN line just for being on his show, because he wanted the quality to be good. And a lot of other places did that as well. And nowadays, I can't get an ISDN line here.
No, you can't.
My house, I can't get one. I can't get a DSL line here. I cannot. I can't get a POTS line here. I can't it's ridiculous that amazing technology is just like verboten. It's forbidden to get really cool technology because it's more than a couple years old.
You know what I really would like to see? I want a thermal fax machine with a rotary dial. I mean, how freaking cool would that be, especially when you're misdialing and you're just calling people up? Oh, crap, I misdialed.
Right? Right?
Rotary phones, man. You didn't call somebody unless you were committed. I mean, you really had to care.
We're hitting the hour mark, but I've got a couple more questions. You want to stick with me for a few more minutes here? Because I got a couple more questions that are great. The next one is ridiculous. The Great Distraction over on Mastodon asks, Brian Lunduke, are you secretly John Teeter? And have you heard that name in a while?
Not for a long time.
John Teeter. Wow. All right. Quick history lesson for everyone who I guess is not old enough. John Teeter.
What do you want? Yeah.
There's this show that I've actually been on. There's a radio show called Coast to Coast AM, and I've been lucky enough to be on that show once so far. But it kind of mostly deals with like aliens and paranormal and whatnot. They had me on to talk about like surveillance and NSA stuff and spying and whatnot. But so back, it used to be hosted by this guy named Art Bell. And Art Bell was the king of paranormal funkiness on the radio. And he was the man, right? And they had a message for him. They had basically BBS. It might have been on CompuServe. It might have been dial-up use. I don't even remember. But it was this guy appeared. And this was many years back. Who said his name was John Teeter. Titor. And he's like, I'm John Teeter. I'm in the military. And I'm from the future. And I came back.
Beautiful.
I was in a time machine. And I went on my way back to the 1960s, was it? I can't remember. And his goal, he was on a mission because he was from like the year 2030 something. And he was sent back in time to the 1960s because he needed to pick up a manual or a piece of software for an old mainframe. That was from the 1960s because his grandfather was one of the guys that worked on it. Yeah, an old IBM mainframe. Thanks, chat room. It's been a long time since I read this John Teeter stuff. It's fantastic. 2036. Thank you, chat room. You guys are real nerds. I love my audience. And so anyway, so this guy goes back. He goes on his mission. And check it out, though. It's so Back to the Future-y. Because not only does he go back in time in a time machine, the initial thing he goes back in was a car. And then he changes it to a pickup truck. And then comes Then he comes a little bit forward in time and begins posting posts on the Coast to Coast AM message boards to let people know about the coming Civil War and World War III. And we've already passed by the time when it was supposed to happen. Like it was supposed to happen I think right around the beginning of the Obama administration or late Bush administration. Like it was like that time frame. But by that point we were supposed to be like neck deep in crazy World War III. So we're fine. John Teeter was not real. But he was like I think it turned out to be like a guy from Florida or two guys from Florida or something like that. But anyway, nobody knew for sure, I guess. But John Teeter was basically the pseudo real life equivalent of Marty McFly in a pickup truck, time traveling from the year 2036. Anyway, yes, the Great Distraction. I am the real John Teeter. All right, and you know what? If you have proof that Brian Lunduke is not John Teeter, present the evidence, I will have you on my show. If you are John Teeter, I will put you on my show, and we will prove it to the world. If you're not, I'm John Teeter. Ha! All right.
Checkmate.
All right. The other one I wanted to actually hit on briefly.
All right.
And I thought this was kind of an interesting question, a really nerdy question. Ken over on Mastodon asks, dude, have you tried using your PC's parallel port as some kind of GPIO? Right now, I've got a Raspberry Pi sitting inside my PC case to control some LEDs networked with my PC. But there's a COM1 port right there. Why is this not a prevalent thing? No one uses those ports anymore, so why aren't any Linux nerds tinkering with your parallel ports? Why, Lunduke? Why? Also, did you get a haircut? As you can see, I'm very invested in your hair. No, I did not get a haircut. Random. I did one video without the headphones on, and everyone was like, did you get a haircut? I'm like, no, I did not get a haircut. So just so everyone knows how this works, and I'm not, I don't need to talk about my hair very often, but I get my hair cut like twice a year because I just don't care what my hair looks like. So I have a tendency to get my hair cut for those of you listening to the audio podcast, you were really missing out this episode. Matt is awesome. That right there, you know what that is, Matt?
This is why I wear a hat.
That's self-confidence is what that is. That's manliness and nards. You're awesome, man. But no, like, so like you'll notice, like, every year before I get up and like do like a big presentation at one of the big Linux festivals, I'll go get my hair cut because inevitably my wife will look at me and be like, so how many people are you going to be in front of next week? And I'm like, I don't know, like 1,000.
Oh yeah, no, that's why I wear a hat, because then she doesn't think about it.
And she'll be like, "So your rat tail is getting a little ratty back there," and I'm like, "Should I get that cut?" I'm like, "Do you want to cut it real quick?" She's like, "No. You need to pay the $10 and pay someone who knows how to cut hair to cut your hair for once in your friggin' life."
My wife actually last week has been checking me into Great Clips from the app. Every time I turn around, it's like, I'm not gonna. I'll get. It's like, that's why I wear a hat. I don't care if I can still. I get my hair cut when I can't. When it starts coming out the sides and I can't cram it in my hat anymore. That's why I wear a hat all the time. It's literally because I'm that lazy. Seriously. Now you know.
All right. Let's end on one question here.
Oh my god!
So Harris Kenny, the president over at Lulzbot, who I had on the show this week, he posed this kind of interesting question to me. And Harris is cool because he's just a straight up nerd like we are, right?
Yeah,
but he was thinking about some stuff, and he said, I had a thought after our conversation yesterday. Which Linux distro or free software project has the strongest brand? Not just in terms of popularity, but also in terms of clarity and differentiation. Like which one has a brand where it's clear, the name, the logo, the colors, the emphasis, the strengths. Which one has the brand where you're like, damn, that's good?
Boy, branding's one of those things. So branding and clarity are not the same. So and very rarely are they in the same bucket. But
I know, but you know what I mean. Like,
yeah, I mean,
but like, what are the brands? I mean, so when I think about this, I make that exact same face Matt's making right now, because there's in one camp you'd say Red Hat or Ubuntu, right? So Red Hat and Ubuntu, but a lot of that is popularity. And that's not so much strength of brand, because the reality is the look and feel of Ubuntu has changed dramatically over the years. And so their styles and their brand has really changed a lot. Some of the logo has remained somewhat similar, and some of their colors have remained somewhat similar. But the brand really isn't that strong. Like if you were to go to a person on the street and say Ubuntu, well, that's just a word that means like humanity or humans, right? So like it's like, well, I mean, also there's a soft drink company with that name,
which is hilarious.
So that's that. Now Red Hat, on the other hand, actually I think has a really interesting brand because they've stuck really hard to a friggin' red hat. They have a red fedora. They keep that name consistent through their projects. So like the Fedora project is named after the corporate brand, right? Like there's some sort of a consistency and synergy
incorporating
there.
visuals, honestly. If we're incorporating visuals, and no one's going to like this answer, but it's just factual, Linux Mint.
What?
If you were as far as a consistent visual experience, yeah.
Are you talking mostly, like desktop experience or the overall brand?
I'm talking about the whole thing. I'm talking about from desktop to website to logo to all of it. I'm not saying it's my go-to. The second choice would be Arch because it's text and a black screen. You know, that's pretty consistent. But no, I think and that doesn't mean that's like my go-to distro or anything. But as far as like a complete total experience, yeah.
But the brand though.
As far as like a trademarked company protected brand, sure, yeah, they got the Fedora.
Maybe not a company protected brand, but you know what I mean, like there's a
but
like
once you get beyond the hat or beyond the name or beyond the building even,
that's a good point.
It's a freaking GNOME desktop. I mean, what am I looking?
No, that's a good point. What does so Red Hat visually and naming wise has a good thing going on?
They have a company presence.
But what does a Red Hat mean? What does the Red Hat mean? Like if you think, okay, so what does Red Hat do? Like, well, they do a lot of enterprise level Linux servers, and they have like JBoss application servers, and now they're really big into containers and like what the F is a container, and like it becomes clouded and complicated in a hurry. So you're right.
But as far as something I can point to, I can pull up a web page, pull up an ISO. Using Linux Mint, pull up their web page and point to a logo. Green, 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 and green. The polished silvery feel that with the cinnamon and all that. It's I'm not saying it's like my go-to thing, but as far as it being like, they've really stuck to their guns on the green. They really have. They all stuck to their guns on just kind of the overall feel for it, the overall experience. It's always been pretty uniform from release to release. There's no unity. There's no generic GNOME desktop. There's no, you know what I mean? And I don't mean that negatively. I mean, just truly, they've kind of made it their own. So if you put aside the company elements of it and just look at it from a strictly visual, I can point to it and say, now that's branding. If they were a soft drink, they would be like a major player. I mean, like they would, the Pepsi colors with the Pepsi stand and even the mint box, for Pete's sake. What did they use in it? They used little green mints with it. I mean, like everything they do is green. I mean, it's incredibly consistent.
On that token, one company that doesn't have a huge brand recognition right now, but I think could if they played their cards right, is the Endless people, because they've got their logo was just the infinity logo. They did good with their logos, good with their names. Everything is endless, and I that has a good punch to it. Like that could have really good brand recognition,
and they may actually get it there, and they're doing some really cool work too. So,
right?
I'd love to see. Yeah, I would definitely love to see it.
That is kind of an interesting question because, so Harris and I had a conversation both in the show and offline before and afterwards about kind of like Linux and free software marketing, and we talked about it a little bit today, you and I, and I think this is something that I think for a lot of people this might be a little boring, but it's also something that a lot of these projects I think could use to spend more time on, and really focus on. And just to give a kind of a reference to what I've done in the past. So like this little guy, right? The SUSE Chameleon, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly.
As an example. So I worked in marketing at SUSE for 4 years, and currently I'm still on the board of the OpenSUSE project with this little guy as the mascot. Now, having a mascot's nice. Having a consistent color scheme is nice. But you have to really take advantage of that in order to see the fruits of having something like that. So I don't feel that necessarily this has been fully taken advantage of in order to capitalize on that. Much like how Red Hat hasn't fully capitalized on they have a great consistency, but they haven't capitalized on it in such a way that I think they really could. Or Endless really has a good, strong brand layout. It's very attractive. It's nice, but they haven't really capitalized on that. Canonical. So the name of the company is Canonical. The thing they make is Ubuntu, and then the logo, I know it's supposed to be 3 people like holding hands and hugging in a circle or something, but it doesn't actually look like that until you describe it to someone, which means that the logo is not related to the name of the product or the company, and the company name and the product aren't related in any way, shape, or form. They're both words that mean other things that people do not think of. So honestly, I think in popularity terms, Ubuntu has a really strong brand, but in terms of actually making a good, cohesive, beautiful, strong brand, I think Ubuntu has one of the worst in the Linux and free software industry. And Red Hat actually has one of the best because they've had a more cohesive thing, but I don't think they've fully capitalized on that. Like they haven't.
One thing Red Hat's
their ads reflected.
Yeah. Well, one thing that Ubuntu does that I always thought was weird is they made a fidget spinner, their logo, which I always found strange, because that's basically what it is. So I always thought that was kind of weird. But I think
canonical in Ubuntu.
Oh yeah.
It looks like a fidget spinner, doesn't it?
It does. It does. It's a fidget spinner. No, I think I think if you take certain desktop environments, Puppy Linux, Linux Mint, Elementary, and you just take screenshots and you put it up on the web, any reasonable Linux user that's been around for more than a couple of years will look at that and say, "Oh, hey, that's Elementary. There. Oh, hey, that's."
I'm just kind of bringing it up for people to look at it. It does basically look like a fidget spinner.
But seriously,
it looks like a freaking fidget spinner.
But with with SUSE or with Red Hat, in order to recognize SUSE, you really need to have YAST open. Let's face it. I mean, that's kind of their claim to fame, really. That's I believe. I mean, now no.
You're kind of right. You're kind of right on this. So like OpenSUSE, right? Yeah. Makes a point of not customizing the user experience, of shipping, like there's some artwork and some branding, but there is, but it's mostly a stock upstream experience, which is both good in that it's stock and upstream and bad in that it's not a unique thing, not necessarily. And so in that regard, it's more like you're running, stock Debian, right?
Yeah, right.
It has a lot of similarities there. And so you're right. There's a real branding issue there. And I think a lot of these free software projects kind of have that problem going on.
Well, the same thing with a Linux user and Chromebook.
Hold on. Yeah. I got to point this out to people. So right now I just pulled up the Ubuntu logo, right?
Right.
When I did that using Google search, which I hardly ever use. So I want to point this out right now because I don't want to get flack for this, because I'm totally going to get flack for this. It was in Google search because the only time I ever pull up Chrome, and I have Chrome on my production machine for one reason only: when I connect to Matt Hartley via Hangouts.
Yeah, that's true.
And I never customize it to use any other search engine because I never use Chrome except for when I have to bring up Hangouts to do a video chat with someone. So before anyone gives me flack, yes, I just use Google as a search engine. And it made me bummed out that I did that. But you know what? I did so transparently, and you guys can see my shame right now, live on the internet. All of Lunduke's shame right there. Holy Lord. Matt, thank you for hanging out with me a little extra long today.
That was fun.
You know what? We didn't even get through half the questions. Not even close. Not even close. And since we started this show, way more questions have been asked. Like,
of course, naturally.
Everyone who didn't get their question answered, I was not ignoring you because it was a crummy question. No. Literally most of them I just didn't get to in scrolling. My apologies to all of you. Ask it next week. Come back next week. Ask those questions again, unless they were crummy, unless they legitimately weren't good questions. And you know what they were.
Then you're out of luck.
Yep. Then you're out of luck. Matt, what's going on in your neck of the woods right now, buddy? You got any cool things going on? Got any articles, videos, things like that?
I'm actually stepping up more stuff on Freedom Penguin. There's going to be more stuff appearing there, in addition to the usual weekly bit. I actually have some software reviews coming up, including one where I actually control my computer with my face. And that sounds really weird, but if you actually subscribe to check that out, it's going to be pretty cool.
With your face with the Wookiee mask on?
Oh, that would be great. No, in hindsight. But yeah, no, that would have been like all, But no, that would have been cool. But no, I did not do it with the Wookiee mask, but so I've got that coming out. And of course, we've got our usual weekly content as well. So you can check that out.
Awesome.
Also check out Patreon/Freedom Penguin and support what I do. That would work.
Yeah, if Patreon/Freedom Penguin, that's a great idea. That's kind of like this one, where you can go over to patreon.com/Brian Lunduke to support me. But take that word Brian Lunduke and change that to Freedom Penguin, and then you're supporting Matt.
Right.
So whichever one you do, it means you love that person more. This is a popularity.
Oh, jeez. Yeah,
but seriously,
right.
I want to take a moment to thank everybody for supporting Matt, for supporting me, for supporting all the other people making some really cool free software and Linux content out there. We're helping to get the word out about this stuff, and you guys are making this possible. All of the Patreon supporters, the sponsors, Pogo Linux, Lullspot, System 76, man, all of you are really making this happen, and it makes a really big difference, like a huge, undeniable, crazy difference. I was just talking with the Linux Gamer, Gardner. I was just talking with Gardner the other day, and you know, he's got a Patreon going on too, right? And a couple extra people chipped in a few extra bucks over there, and that directly made it so he was able to review some additional stuff on Linux that he couldn't afford to do before. And so there's a lot of people like that. Support me, support Matt, but there's a lot of us out there in the Linux world creating this really cool content, and it's all because of you.
Support what you love.
Yeah. Support what you love. You guys are all fantastic. We wouldn't be here without you. Not at all. Not at all. So, and if you can't, don't feel bad. Just
share content.
Just tune in, share it out. Post it.
Seriously, that alone is huge. Like just stuff.
Click all the uppy buttons and the whatnotties, and go over on the Reddits and say I like this and upvote them or whatever. I don't know. Just send out the love in the universe, and the universe will send it back in the form of nerdiness. All right, Matt. Yes. Should we sign off? I feel like we should. I feel like we've talked for 1 hour and 20 minutes now. Should we do the last word thing, or should we not?
Do the last word.
We don't definitely have to. Should we do it? All right. That was good. I haven't stopped recording yet, by the way.